My name is Ben Wallace. I'm with Oregon Air Reps. We were the vendor for the piece of equipment we're talking about today, the split system and the PTAC. PTAC is, now I'm going to draw a blank. It's short for Package Terminal Air Conditioner. In this case, it's a heat pump. It's not just an air conditioner, and it's got backup electric heat in it. And the Daikin split system, which is also a heat pump, but is only used for cooling in this application. So let's go with the PTAC first, the Package Terminal Air Conditioner. It's called packaged because it's got compressor, it's got a condenser and an evaporator coil, and a fan on each side. So
where are you blowing the condenser?
Outdoors. So there's...
This thing hangs in a wall?
Yes. It's a glorified window shaker.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So it's your hotel unit is what it is. It's better than that, but it's a hole in the wall. Oops, I said I was going to sit still. It's a hole in the wall, and you've got a fan that's recirculating return air and blowing it back into the space through one coil, and then on the other side, it's pulling outdoor air and pushing the outdoor air back out. So it's got a condenser on one side and an indoor fan on the other. And this is a heat pump, and so it can switch between one side being the condenser, one being the evaporator, or vice versa. Important things to note, and we can get into the details of the temperatures, but at one point when it gets cold enough, or if it gets too far from set point during the heating mode, it will kick on electric strip heat as well inside the unit. It also has condensate. Whichever coil is cold is going to produce condensate. So if it's cooling and the indoor coil produces condensate, that condensate migrates to the back of the unit, and then the fan in the back of the unit kicks that up and kind of sprays it over the condenser fan just to kind of increase efficiency. And it more or less will evaporate and be rid of condensate. When it's in the reverse cycle and the indoor unit is heating, the outdoor coil is cooling. The outdoor coil will create condensate. And there's two methods of condensate removal. One is it just drips outside, and it might have a tube sticking outside and then it drips. Since it's up on the 4th floor, I'm not sure if that's the way they did it. So there's also a condensate through the middle of the unit, which would end up going down the cavity of your wall into a drain, and I'm not sure on this one which way they went with.
Hopefully they're blowing it outside.
Hopefully?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you just be done with
You
it.
said the drain would be in the wall space?
Yeah.
It might go down all the way to the first floor and then pop out the bottom.
Yeah. How do you see this drain? You got to pull the unit out
Right.
to find out why you're flooding.
Yeah.
Does it have defrost control?
It does have defrost control. I don't know the sequence, the details of it. We'd have to read into that.
We got a lot of wall hung, we got like mobile home trailers out there on campus,
Yeah.
and those don't defrost very well. We've had problems with in the heating mode, the outdoor coil icing up so bad that the fan starts to hit the ice.
Oh, geez. We can look at this, and then there's also, you can change the settings of when the electric heat comes on, also, if that's related. And there is a manual outside air damper. So if you take the cover off, and you can move a lever and establish a certain amount of outside air. So let's go ahead and stick with the PTAC, the Package Terminal Air Conditioner / heat pump. So I've described the two coils, the fans. For the newcomers, this is a package unit that heats, cools. It's a heat pump. It's got an indoor unit and outdoor unit all in one box, as opposed to a split system. The controls are on board, so there's not a thermostat on the wall. There's a return sensor, and that's considered the room temperature. So there's 4 sensors on the unit. There's the return air temperature, and then there's the indoor coil temperature. and there's the discharge temperature, the outdoor temperature, and the outdoor coil temperature. So there's quite a few sensors on it. There's also pressure sensors, so the thing will trip if temperatures are too cold, too hot, or the pressures in the refrigerant are too great or too little. So it has a bit of safeties on it. This manual here, the one that does not say care and cleaning, near the last pages there. So the very last page, there's a 2-digit LED display that will read out those figures, AU, BO, BY. Those are your error codes or your status codes. So the display will read either a temperature set point or one of these. And as you push through the buttons, these will light up to show you where you're at, what you're picking, that kind of situation. Actually, the last page there is good displays, menu displays. The one to the left are your errors, E1, E2, E3, if you were to have a cause or a fault. Going back one more page is your refrigerant cycle. So there's your Carnot cycle for your class. It does give you, if you assume a 95-degree outdoor temperature, 80 degrees indoor, those are the refrigerant pressures and temperatures that you should see in a proper operating system. So you can see there how we have on the left side of that diagram, we've got an indoor coil and an indoor fan. And on the outdoor coil, outdoor fan with a compressor. So fairly simple. And you do get to punch through that and see what those pressures and temperatures are with that keypad. So it actually could be a very valuable tool.
It gives you evaporator condenser pressure?
Yeah, I believe those are in the menu somewhere as you punch through it. Features of the push button display. You've got your fan control, just like any unit. You can have it cycle. It'll only come on when the unit's heating or cooling. There's a few cases where it'll continue to run. Like if the electric heat's on, the fan's not going to turn off for 15 seconds after the electric heat's on to help it cool off. So there's minimum on and off times. The compressor has a minimum 3-minute off time. So if you're messing with it, trying to get it to do something and it's not working, there is 3 minutes of lag time between.
So you get a short cycle.
Yeah, anti-recycle, yeah. There's a sleep function where you can set it to operate for a certain amount of hours before it turns off.
Yeah, so it's got a low ambient loss there too.
Yes. There's night low limit. You can set it, I think it defaults to 40. If the room ever gets below 40, it'll just turn on, heat it up for 5 more degrees, and then turn back off. And that's just built in. And a lot of these, if you hold the up and down button at the same time for 10 seconds, you get your additional set points. You can do change all the set points within the unit, not just temperature of the room, but actual high limits, low limits. And then there's these 9 LED indicators that just tell you what mode it's in: sleep, cool, cool, dry. Cool, dry is a mode where it's going to, I think, take the fan speed down, but run the compressor a little longer past set point, just trying to cool that air or dry out the air as much as possible and get the coil as cold as possible. And then you have continuous or cycling fan, like I said, where you can let the fan run or cycle based on heat or cool operation. The set points, it turns on when you are 1 degree less than set point. So if we're heating, 1 degree less than set point, it'll kick on. it'll kick off after it gets 2 degrees above set point. And just the reverse when it's heating. And so there's a 3-degree dead band around set point. There is a compressor random start, which is a feature basically for hotels. When you have a power outage and there is a call for that compressor to run, when the power comes back on, there's a random between 0 and 2 minutes when that compressor is going to come on. So if you were to have a bunch of these and you turn the power on, they don't all just slam on at the same time. So that's just...
That's, they have that here? Is that?
The random start?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But this is just one unit.
This is one unit, it's in the energy management. Oh, okay. So
Yeah, it's actually just, it's more for training in the classroom.
What's the gas that you use?
It's 410A. Yeah. So 410A is the industry standard for most smaller package equipment that replaced R22. Yeah. The compressor will run for 90 seconds and then it's off for three minutes. So it'll always run for a minimum of 90 seconds. Indoor coil freeze protection. That's that 40 degrees, but it's adjustable, like I said. Well, no, there's room freeze protection and there's coil freeze protection. So if the coil itself gets too cold for whatever reason, rather than letting it freeze up or make the indoor air that's blowing through it too cold, it'll turn off. In the electric heat, there's a number of ways that it operates. If you get 4 degrees below your room set point and you're in heating mode, it's basically telling the unit, I'm trying to heat pump, but I can't get enough heat out of it to make the room warmer. It'll kick on electric heat as auxiliary heat. So you'd have your heat pump on and your electric heat.
So they have to have proof of fan?
Yeah, yes. And there's also a high temperature limit that'll kick off the electric heat if it got up to, I don't know what the temperature is, 130 or something probably. The electric heat coil is behind the refrigerant coil, and that's probably just so it doesn't light up the room through the louvers or something. So you can't see it directly when you look through.
Can they both run at the same time there?
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's the case where if you get 4 degrees below set point, but the compressor is running in heating mode, it'll kick on and they both can be on at the same time. If the outdoor temperature, I want to say, is 20 degrees, maybe it's 25, that's when it says, okay, no more heat pump, we're just going to do electric heat. And I'm not seeing that right now.
So it's still somewhat efficient at down to 25 degrees?
Yeah, usually the COP, the coefficient of performance, you might be 3.5 on an ideal day when it's 47 degrees outside and you're heating. But as you get colder, that goes less. And but I think it still stays above a 2.0, which means you're doing twice as good as you would if you had electric heat. Yeah, yeah. Down to, you can usually harvest electric or the heat pump heat at 25 to 30 degrees with still a COP that's better than just straight electric heat. Yeah, which is 1. So.
What is that unit size for? I mean, how many square feet is it? It's
Uh,
not that whole classroom, is it?
Do you have the submittal? The one that says submittal on top? Slide that down here. No, I don't think it's probably big enough for the whole classroom. A tonnage. It's 1.5 tons, so no. I mean, if the room was empty, it might be able to take care of it. Can't throw the air too far either.
If I remember correctly, though, there's a number of other, I mean, the load for the room is completely taken care of by the building system. This is really just a teaching piece. Right?
So you'll love this part. The recommended maintenance is to pull it out of the wall and inspect it once a year.
Really?
Every piece of it. Now, if I was a manufacturer, I'd recommend that on everything. Then you've got no liability, right?
Easy to say.
So it looks like that part, there it is, maintenance schedule, fourth page maybe from the back. Fourth page, not necessarily the fourth piece of paper. Adjacent to the diagram we were looking at. So regular intervals, the filter is warm water with mild detergent. So it's one of those really thin filters that you could vacuum, you could wash. It is reusable.
Dishwasher.
Yeah, dishwasher, really thin. They recommend, maybe twice a year might be normal, unless you were doing laundry or there's something else in that room that causes a lot of buildup. But yeah, once a year, remove the chassis, and then it goes through checking everything. It does come apart fairly easily if you were to want to take one of the fans out, or it's made to, remove it from the wall, and then you take the cover off, and then each thing is a compartment that can slide out. Honestly, especially if you're using it more for classroom than for conditioning, and you're not running it all the time, then I would say most of this is not necessary as often as it says.
That'd be cool too, in your class, one time a year, pull that sucker out and go through it and
Yeah.
show them how to clean all the clothes and all that good stuff.
So we could actually take it out of the wall. I mean, it's kind of sealed up now, isn't it? But we could actually take it out of the wall and put it on a stand and
Yeah.
actually run it.
I'm curious to see how it was installed, because it was furnished with a sleeve that it fits into, but that's not always how they finish it out. So yeah, I'm not
We're
sure.
gonna go up there later.
Yeah, we'll go up there next.
Now, I don't know about this, but I was around the tech once, and he was had a scale, let's say, and for the outside air temperature, and then he would do the high side. I would take it for he had a gauge, he did a little kind of a fit in.
A pressure gauge for the refrigerant?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then he had to take the ambient temperature outside, and then go up to the chart to see where it should be, because he said the old one had a little sight glass. And he goes, well, this is much better than sight glass.
Yeah.
Do they still do that, or they advanced beyond that? Or?
Yeah, there's still ports to measure the refrigerant pressure at, I think on every HVAC package unit. I doubt that there's sight glass in there. There might be one built into the compressor. Usually that's an option for expensive, it's like an added feature that you see on more expensive units.
What's that, Jerry?
Oh,
So I got the cyclist anyway on
okay.
It doesn't,
it.
that,
If it had
version
an
22.
engine valve or something, the way this is made, this is just like a refrigerator. Yeah, except it doesn't show the reversing valve in this.
Doesn't.
This thing looks like it's just cooling room, the way it's drawn out.
And that is probably the case in that drawing, because this manual I think covers both the heat pump version and the non-heat pump version. So that's the PTAC. It is the level of equipment that you often see in a hotel room. See what else the Smittle has here.
Except for this is the Cadillac version.
Yeah. There's Amana and there's McQuaid. And to be honest, McQuaid costs twice as much as the Amana. So I'm sure you've seen Amana. So there's two breakouts of the pieces that you guys can visualize. So that's on the fourth floor this way, I believe.
Yeah.
Or back here. Yeah, in the back of the room. The next unit is the split system. Split system, mini split system is usually what they're called. And this one is a 3-ton. It's about the biggest you can get and still be of this type. It's got an indoor unit, which looks like this. It's a long, skinny unit that hangs on the wall. Behind that, in the wall, you have your refrigerant connections. Two refrigerant connections that would go out to the outdoor unit that's up on the roof. And in this case, it is a heat pump. It can reverse cycle, but it's for a data room and it's locked in cooling mode only. So the indoor unit will always be cooling with a cold coil. The outdoor unit will always be heating, basically, rejecting the heat.
Right, so everybody heat up in that room.
Yeah,
I got a Mitsubishi in my house, and it's just awesome.
yeah, same.
It's amazing.
And once they're going, they just kind of go for a long time without much maintenance.
So does this got a remote for,
It came with a remote. We also provided a wired controller, and I haven't seen which was used. So
yeah, because we have a couple of data rooms with the remote, and people play with that, or it disappears, and then
Yeah.
they have no way of adjusting it anymore.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. So
Whenever we provide just the remote, we can give them the little bank cord that they use to stick the pens to the desk.
Yeah, well, that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, it doesn't work very well, but
and the other,
better than
if it is the remote, always, and we'll go play with it if it is, always remember that, like say you go out in the hallway and you push the up button up to 80 degrees. If you're not pointing it at the unit when you do that, it doesn't receive that signal. And now your remote says 80 and you don't know what the room is. So that's the problem with those remotes, is it doesn't give you a feedback of what the room temperature is, but it does give you a number. And unless you hear the beep and you acknowledge that the communication's been sent, it doesn't necessarily, reflect what's going on. There's also a condensate pump right underneath it. I think they installed it right underneath. There'll be a white box, and condensate drains into this white box until the float makes, and then it pumps it out.
It's actual float,
Yeah.
is that pumping
Sorry.
out the wall too? Down 4 volts?
And if we did use the wired remote, or the for lack of a better term, the stat, it only shows the set point, and it doesn't show the room temperature that it's reading. And so that can be confusing sometimes, but
Yeah, because most of these IT guys, they want those rooms cold, so they'll jam it to the lowest setting. And then we have a problem with the thing running too much condensate,
yeah.
and then it starts blowing condensate out the fan, because it produces so much, the coil's sweating so bad.
How many of these do we have? Is there 2 or 3?
Two. One on this side and then one on the residential side. And they're both identical. Same type of filter as the PTAC. It's the very thin. And what you can see there is there's 3 modules of it. Wash it, vacuum it. The recommended maintenance on this is basically twice a year, clean that filter. You can lift up the plate there. You can see the supply comes out the bottom of the unit and it waves. So you can either set the direction of that fin or you can let it oscillate. I found in some places if you've got cold windows and say that the unit was over here, you might want to drive that hot air down during the wintertime. But in this case it's cold and it's going to work. The return is basically the face of that unit, and so if there is dust in the room, you might wipe down the face of that unit as well. The outdoor unit is just like the Mitsubishi that you've seen on every building. No maintenance per se. Maybe I wouldn't recommend pressure washing because you can bend the fins, but vacuuming or spraying down every so often. It is basically an open coil to the outdoor air with a fan drawing air over it. And so you've got cottonwood, you've got that type of stuff to watch for. There's no filter to change. So you do need to blow it off depending on what that unit sees during its
Yeah.
Lifetime.
There's a Fin foam brush,
okay.
works pretty well on that.
Yeah. So you can pop the cover off and then you can get straight to the fins. I will let you know Daikin is a name that not a lot of people know. However, Daikin is the largest air conditioning manufacturer in the world. They surpassed Carrier last year. And they own McQuaid, which is who made the PTAC. They're worldwide huge. They're just relatively new to the U.S. They came in about 6 years ago and decided the U.S. was their last frontier. And the mini split, these guys are the smallest thing in their catalog, and then they have the VRF systems, which Mitsubishi also has. That's the one outdoor unit and multiple indoor units, which is the other thing on the list today, but it wasn't actually furnished on the job. It was just, it was in the specs, so we had a training session for it, but it doesn't exist.
I think that's what we have in building 11. We've got some units going into that one art classroom. We also have the IT room in there. The Deacon? It's not, it's a Mitsubishi, but it's one unit, but it runs
Yeah.
multiple.
Yeah, and you can have separate piping line sets to each indoor unit, or the bigger systems has one line set and then it distributes. So,
I haven't been able to figure out
how that works?
how to tell people how that works. I just say there's a magic box.
All right.
It's hot refrigerant and send it back.
I'll draw it up for you later. We'll do a training session on it anyways. I think that's best for the classroom talk, and then we can go push buttons and kick the tires. If we're on. So the fan coil, my mistake, I don't have paperwork for it, but luckily it is a fan and a coil. So when you remove compressors, things get simple. These are console unit fan coils. So it's a unit that goes against the wall. It returns up through the bottom, goes through a filter, goes through a water coil, and then comes out through the fan. And I think this is just heating. It might be heating and cooling. If it's heating and cooling, it's a 4-pipe. It's got an in and out of heating water, in and out of chilled water. If it's just a heating unit, which is most common, it just has it one heating coil. And that's it. The filter is a little better filter, but we'll see that. It goes in the bottom, and it just filters any air drawn up through it. No outside air.
Is it pleated?
It's not pleated.
Or is it- right, like-
It's kind of like 2 layers of what these ones are.
Oh,
It's not much. It's not a 1-inch.
it's still the same.
It's plastic, it's like a plastic.
Yeah.
It's reusable.
Yeah, it's reusable. Yeah, it's a little thicker, but yeah, it's reusable.
So the last time I looked at the fan coil units, the little section where the controls usually is just a flat plate.
Yeah.
I don't know if is there a remote control for that or something?
These are the fan start-stop, and how much hot water you get is controlled by the control system. And so there should be a automated logic wall sensor that senses the temperature of that room, has a set point associated with it, and it will turn on and off the fan based on a schedule, and it'll open and close the valve based on room temperature. So it won't have any onboard controls. It's controlled elsewhere.
So for occupied mode, it just runs flat out, the fan?
Yeah, constant volume.
Okay, so all you're doing is modulating the water.
Yep. And there is a dial inside, I believe, where you could pick medium, low, or high airflow. But there's no outside air introduced to it. And that's the same for the IT room split system. There's no outside air. The PTAC has a manual air damper, which you can move and set and fix. But so the fan coil is relatively simple. I think it's got a stamped louvered grill on the top, which just directs the air one direction. It doesn't modulate. It's not adjustable. Okay, so we've got a wall-mounted Daikin mini split system here. Inside this is a 3-speed fan motor, blowing a fan over a evaporator coil. There's variable louvers here. At the moment, looks like they're fixed, but they can oscillate to redirect the airflow. This white module below the unit is a condensate pump. So the condensate falls out of the unit into that condensate reservoir and then gets pumped out of there. It is wired down to this wall controller that basically you set your set points and it heats or cools. It's actually operating off of a return temperature sensor that's up in the return. So your three components, your wall controller, your pump, and your unit. The front of this plate opens up, which then allows you to get to the filters that come out, and they're just washable filters. This is an occupancy sensor right here that should be turned off, which will set back the temperature if it does not sense temperature or sense movement. These icons are self-explanatory. There's a snowflake for cooling. There's a small fan for a little bit,
Yeah.
a bigger fan, and a biggest fan.
What's the square with the two dots in it?
I don't know. Are you? I don't know.
Yeah,
What is it? There is one icon that'll really screw with you. It's a faucet with a drip coming out of it. That does not mean you have a leak. That means you should wash your filters.
See if you go mode, you get that.
It might be dry or.
Oh yes, dry mode. I think that might be dry cool, which means
I know, I think you just turned it on. The louvers moved.
oh.
So the dry mode for these guys basically just sets the set point at the return air temperature that leaves the coil, leaves the valve open a little bit. So basically it's trying to maintain the same temperature but draw moisture out. That's all it is. It's just like setting the set point at the room temperature but leaving the valve open a tiny little bit.
So there's no controls on board here. Yeah, you could get controls, but
Could you kind of just
okay.
mention what the unit was?
Okay, this is fan coil. Fan coil unit 401. I think 402 is over there. It's a McQuaid fan coil. It's got filters in the bottom. Comes through a coil and then through a fan. Draws the air through a fan or through the coil. And that coil heats or cools the air with hot water. And there's a big cover over it. That's all there is to it. I don't know how to take the cover off.
Controlling the hot water?
The hot water valve is being controlled by automated logic, by the building automation. There is a sensor on the wall over there.
Sensor over there.
Because there's so much in this room, I don't know exactly how it works. And my guess is you turn it on with this switch. For each unit has their own on-off switch. And then that valve is probably controlled same as the radiant sealing valve and possibly the terminal unit control. All of them probably controlled to that one room temperature sensor. So you could probably bake this room pretty warm or cool if you wanted to.
So this thing's locked in one speed, because there's no...
Right. If you open it up, I believe there should be a 3-speed dial in there.
You pull the cover off.
Yeah, if you pull the cover off. And I'm not sure how to get the cover off.
It looks like there's two screws. One right here. And each side, this panel should lift right off.
Okay.
Are we gonna...
Just want to do that too, or
Well, I got all
call it a day?
I got a little jet.
Oh yeah, let's use that one again. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of concrete dust in this thing.
And one of these, if you look at that other one over there, this grill is damaged, and the pencil screen inside is also damaged, and a new cover for that's coming next week for that one over there. There was just trade damage during construction.
God, 3 blower wheels, 2 motors.
Well, what's with?
Wow.
Oh, okay, so one blower motor's taking care of these two, and this motor's just doing this one.
Is it 2-speed?
So this is just one coil, so it's just hot water.
It changes
Um,
over like the ceiling.
I'm not,
Radiant panels?
gosh, I want to say is there a water pipe over there too?
No.
There's only 2 pipes over here.
But Ben,
Yeah.
it changes over with the ceiling.
Oh, okay.
They have,
That's right. So it's a 2-pipe heat and cool unit. So these 2 pipes going in can either heat with hot water or cool with cold water.
So there's some changeover somewhere
Yeah.
for heating and cooling.
Yeah. Because throughout the building, you'll see these perf panel ceilings. Those are radiant heating and cooling panels. And so the room itself switches over from heating water or cooling water. That makes sense why the condensate trap is here. Condensate drain.
Freaking me out in that computer lab where we had that leak right up in front of that desk on that radiant panel. I guess you weren't here, Mike.
You're never getting this panel off of the bookcase there, Clyde.
Do you know what kind of leak it was? Was it on a U-bend
Yeah,
or
I think it was the
oh, coupling?
Yeah. I didn't see it.
What else we got? So we have control valves over here with the Blemo actuator. We got balancing valves. Looks like a strainer with a hose bib connection and a blow down valve. And this is your condensate drain. So this condensate drains down into a similar one like the last one, where it's got a reservoir. It'll fill up and then it pumps it up through here and out.
It's on.
All right. This cover here, one screw, you pull it off and you're going to get to your controls. Trying to think of the version. It has a twisted pair, I think, that goes to the indoor unit. So
it's 3 tons, probably 4,
so it's a 4-wire.
I believe.
So the power is brought to this unit through the building power, and then 4 wires go from this to the indoor unit, and those 4 wires are power and communication. On the inlet side over here, you can see the coil is slightly blue. That's an acrylic anti-corrosive coating. Very thin layer, doesn't change any heat transfer properties. The air gets drawn through and comes out the fan on this side. And since this unit will always be cooling indoors, that means this is basically heating, so it's not going to produce condensate. It's always going to just dispense of heat